Hello everyone. Few days back, everyone know that one of the video was circulating at the social media. One of the eminent doctor from Bangalore was talking about the Indian healthcare system and how we are going through a difficult scenario. And there he was mentioning about the shortage of ventilator beds, oxygen, and lot of things. And you also come up with some of the strategy to make nurses within 2 weeks of time. I think you all must be heard of it, right? So I think he must be comparing the nurses with making maybe a kind of disposable. Like he said, we have made surplus PPEs, kits, and ventilator within 2 weeks of time. I feel similar way. He's thinking that he can make nurses in 2 weeks time. I don't know. He might have that idea, or he might have some factory to make the nurses within 2 weeks of time. But anyway, that was his thought that I don't have to comment on that. But ultimately, what are we lacking with? Are we lacking with only the hospital beds, or are we lacking with the qualified trained nurses in India? So there is a debate going on, right? So, but I feel we have adequate resources in our nation. We have adequate manpower. We have qualified nurses here in our system. But are we using them properly? That is my biggest question. If you could see the government recruitment, there are thousands of nurses are appearing in the government exams. But does all these thousands of nurses are getting appointed in the hospitals? That is another question altogether. The recent recruitment, I mean, day before yesterday, there was a recruitment that happened in AIMS. They were appointing nurses on contract basis, but still there were hundreds and thousands of nurses came in a day to attend those interviews, which means we have nurses everywhere, but we are not utilizing it though. Then why the government has come up with a new decision of utilizing the student nurses? I don't say that utilizing, I would say that exploiting or misusing them in private areas, wherein they will be just paid, some rupees of penny as their compensation and risking their life. Will the government take care of them? Will our system take care of their family? Who is responsible if something happened to them? This is all question, right? And why are we not saying against this government? If they are going wrong, we have to tell them, boss, you are wrong. This is a democratic country wherein we have all the rights and privilege to express our own feelings. If you don't do that, we will spoil our nation. So, to request all my colleagues, my fellow junior nurses, seniors, and leaders, kindly be alert. The government is going against to the nursing fraternity in India. That is a fact. Why are they not giving proper working facilities, proper wages to the nurses in India? Why do they have to always support the private players in India? Look at the way government, how they're functioning right now. It is completely collapsed. And who is bothered? Nobody is bothered. Ultimately, the patient are the only sufferers. They are not getting oxygen. They are not getting beds. They are not getting medications. And some of the doctors coming and telling us that we have surplus CPs and PPs. We have surplus ventilators and etc. etc. I don't know where he kept it. But I could tell you, every day we get a number of calls from the patient relative asking for ventilator beds, and the hospital cannot serve. So where are our surplus ventilators are lying? And do we need only ventilators? We need qualified nurses to treat them. And I must appreciate that doctor to say that just because of the nurses' power, the patients are getting required. That is a true fact in today's scenario. It is not just because of anybody. That I appreciate him for at least accepting that fact. So we want the best qualified nurses, and we have to retain them in India. We don't want them to send to other nation. I could see there are a couple of nursing organizations are pushing nurses to different country. I think that is one of the strategy. I think they feel that is the best way we can protect the nurses. Might be right, but I doubt to tomorrow's scenario will I have nurses for my country? So, my dear friends, You have to be very careful. You have to be very cautious in this. You have to react to save our nation. If you don't react, the government will enjoy, and ultimately our patients will be the sufferers. We have to make new beds. We have to increase the manpower. It's a long process. Now, because of the pandemic, we really know how our systems are functioning. So we know this is not adequate for our country. But what are we doing it for? Right? Only private hospitals are minting money. They are, they are building new infrastructure. They are becoming like a seven-star hotels with the exorbitant charges to the patient. But are we capable of paying those exorbitant charges? Are our public is capable of paying these bills of hospitals? Then why do we have to promote these private players? Why can't we promote the good public hospitals in India? That is a question. If you look at the total number of hospitals, majorly it goes to private hospitals. And even if you go to a public hospital, they don't have any facilities at all. And you know how much these nurses get paid in India? It's hardly 5,000 to nearly 15,000 in a city like Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore. So imagine the workload they take every day in the hospital. They wear PPE for 6 to 12 hours time without any rest. And the private players are not ready to increase the remuneration. And they want people to work without getting wages properly, without having the safe working condition. The moment a nurse is positive, they are pushing them to a government facility wherein the treatment will be given free of cost. And the nurses do not have a health insurance coverage. They don't have any risk allowances. There is no security at all for the nurses' life in India. There are a lot of nurses lost their life due to the pandemic. We happen to hear this every day, and that is really, really heartbreaking. And who is bothered? No one is bothered, I'll tell you. Why they want to have student nurses here? Because they don't have to be get paid well. They can even work with lesser pay, and they can even work for longer working hours, and nobody is there to question them. Listen, to work as a nurse, you need to get a license from the state nursing council. Until and unless you don't have a license, you are not authorized to touch a patient. Let me tell you that is very frankly. That has to be done, and we have to follow the rules and regulations. There is a law which says that, and we have to abide with the laws. But what we are seeing right now, the government and the public and the people are really not bothered about it. So we as a organization, we as a nursing professional, we have to push for this, and and we have to make sure that the government will support the nurses and our public will get a benefit. Thank you all. Government try to make big buildings, big infrastructure, but ultimately they don't have the qualified manpower in the system to treat the patient. So how do you handle the patient then? So we want qualified nursing personnel into the system, and they should be retained in India, not sending abroad. We are not here to supply nurses to the global needs. We are here to protect our nation. Then the global need is secondary for us, isn't it? So my request to all my fellow nurses to share your aggression, to come up with your suggestions, and we have to go with the government, tell them that this has to be done on immediate basis. Otherwise, we have to take a second step against the government who is doing injustice to the nurses in our nation. Thank you all.